Hi, and welcome to Dietless Living 360 Degrees Overcoming Weight Loss Obstacles with me, your host, Katie Gordon. As a weight loss coach, I help my clients to overcome their weight loss obstacles in 6 simple steps so that they can lose weight their way and lose it for life. But that old saying that it takes a village to raise a child also applies to reaching our weight loss and health goals, because some of the obstacles we have to losing weight reach out into other areas of our life. We often have challenges and obstacles with relationships, work, finances, home, businesses, and families. And sometimes we have other injuries or more complex health issues that are going on. And whilst How to Overcome Weight Loss Obstacles in 6 Simple Steps shows you how to create happy, healthy habits and maintain those through those challenging times, we also need professionals to help us resolve those obstacles. So with that in mind, Dietless Living 360 Degrees brings in those other professionals to help you. And today we have the absolutely remarkable Lauren Cooper. Lauren is an independent consultant that specialises in marketing insights and strategies. Based in Oxfordshire, she provides marketing, management support and strategic consultancy services across small and medium-sized businesses. But before starting her own consultancy, Lauren had extensive marketing experience at BP, running their global fuels marketing campaigns, as well as managing and activating the sponsorship programs like the 2012 London Olympics, Paralympics, the Ford World Rally Championship team, the VW Dakar Rally team, and the 2010 South Africa FIFA World Cup. Before that, Lauren worked in project roles for Virginia Media and then Yahoo, implementing change management projects on process and integrations. Earlier, though, in her life, she spent 3 years traveling the globe and tapping into her love of travel and adventure. In her spare time, though, goodness, does she actually have any spare time? Lauren enjoys anything that's challenging and takes her to new destinations. She's a road cyclist, a mountain biker, a runner, swimmer, snowboarder, and gardener. She did 4 seasons in Chamonix, where her love of the mountains and outdoors and snowboarding absolutely grew. Since arriving in the UK, she's taken up different challenges, from 5-day mountain biking events, the Ironman triathlons, adventure trail racing and running, and the Marathon des Sables, which is a 6-day self-supporting race across the Sahara. We are so going to be talking about that. So welcome to the show, Lauren. It's so great having you with us today. Could you tell us a little bit about what you do and the main way that you help your clients?
Thank you for that intro. Sometimes you can't believe it's your own intro. Thanks for having me on. So I am a strategic marketing consultant, and there's so many different types of marketing consultant. I guess probably the best way of describing me is if you imagine marketing like a production line, and I'm at the front end of it. So I do all of the analysis, the planning, and the strategy, and then that gets handed over to either a campaign or an internal team in an organization. They then run with that, and I'll be checking in at various points. And then I come in at the end and do the measurement. So if you imagine it almost like as if it's a train. So it's getting that train onto the right track, and then getting the train moving, and then checking at those checkpoints and making sure that they get to their destination. And one of the things in particular is the reason I work with small organizations is because they lack both the capability and the capacity to do that. So sometimes, they've got people who are delivering great stuff with campaigns, but it's actually getting to the point of knowing what it is that they need to do. So it's helping them achieve that. And because I have an extended freelance team, I can scale up and down and help them get to that point really quickly. So, whether it's producing stuff or finding the right expertise for the particular thing they need to do, I can help them do that really quickly.
Oh, awesome. I love that you have an extended team. So you work solo for yourself, but you do have a team that works with you, even though they're not per se your team. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a really great thing because it's something I learned, but the hard way, really. Probably about a year or two ago, I had this whole ambition of this. I just want to keep it to myself, and I think it'd be straightforward and simple. And actually, there's so much value in working with other team members because you collaborate, and they do both things that challenge me in my way of thinking, but also improve things that I haven't really thought about. So you might work with people who have got an expertise or they've learned about a new skill set, and that I think particularly adds so much value to what I do in my own business, but also what I can add value to other clients.
Yeah, because you're bringing in so much more expertise on top of your already phenomenal background. So that's just added bonus for anyone who works with you.
Yes, definitely. Love it.
Thanks so much. And I really do. We're going to get to this because it's one of the reasons that, you're marvelous with everything that you've done work-wise, but it's all your triathlons, bike running, the marathons, everything that you've done there that I'm really going to dig in somewhere along the way here, because what I love about that is that mindset that allows you to be able to do that. And perhaps some of that will come out in our conversation as we go. And I'd actually like to start with asking, I ask all my clients, all my guests about the hardships that they've had to go through in life. Like, is there a particular hardship or obstacle that you've had to overcome in your life, and how did you do it? This is kind of the stuff that I really like to share with everybody, is just how do you get past the obstacles in your life?
So yes, I did. When I moved to the UK, so I moved to the UK in 2000, and I met someone, we started to go out, we moved in, and then we got married. And after about 6 months or so after we were married, he had a brain tumor. And so I spent most of my 30s actually nursing my poor husband, who was back and forth to hospital in chemo, radiotherapy, did all extensive surgeries. And it was kind of like 30. I didn't really have a normal 30s that most people do. They're at that point having kids and getting on with their lives, and that didn't really happen. And unfortunately, he did pass away just on his 39th. So he passed away really young, which was really, really hard. And yeah, it was an unbelievably tough time, and it really gives you context to think about what's important in life, and really what really matters. Because people kind of focus on certain stuff that they think that's really important, and actually life experiences and the fact that you are healthy and strong really makes a difference. And I definitely think that had a big impact in my attitude to what I would be doing in life, and the fact that that's why I do a lot of physical things, because I think your body is such an amazing instrument, and there's so much stuff you can do with it. And I don't think people realize you have a limited time, and you don't know how much time you have. Yes. Some you may have forever, and sometimes you may not. And then you think all of those things, if something happens to you, you can take those memories and experiences with you rather than stuff. And I think there's very little, I have really little interest in things and buying stuff and fancy things. I'm just not that interested in things. I like to rather spend my money on holidays and adventures and going away, I think, is my big thing. So it was a really tough time, and I just really had to take a step back and just stop fighting, I think, trying to have a normal life. You just go, well, this is your life. Yes. And at the time you just know this is what you have to do. And yeah, it was really hard, and it took a long time to recover out of it, because you sort of have this weird, like a brain fog and kind of numbness that happens afterwards. Yeah. And oddly enough, I actually have a friend whose husband recently passed, very similar situation. And so I can just feel exactly what she's going through. You kind of almost like everything is on mute around you. So when people are talking, I just remember, I almost like a blackout from that period. I don't really remember much afterwards, for about a year. And then I finally you kind of find yourself again. And, but, I think exercise was really the thing that took me through it, because, it was the only way to sort of calm my brain down and just relax me, because I just felt on edge all of the time. And, running, cycling, swimming was definitely the way to recover. And of course, really great friends I was very lucky. I had some great supportive friends.
That's an amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing that, because what you went through, you're not the only one. There's so many people that lose somebody that they love at such a young age, and even at an old age. It's a shit time, right? There's nothing good about it in any way, shape or form. And there was quite a few points that you made in there that I'd like to circle back to, if you don't mind. When somebody passes, because you touched on it there, which is when somebody passes, how long was your husband sick for before he passed? It was a few years, obviously.
It was probably, I think he'd had some form of it in the first 2 years that I knew him, but they hadn't properly diagnosed it. So they misdiagnosed it as something else.
Yeah.
So I'd say he was sick for about 8 years, 6, 8 years. Yeah. And it was, he'd go through different patches. So he'd have the chemo and then he'd be fine for, because they're like, oh, everything's clear, it's all fine. And then it would come back again. So he had two other batches when it came back. And then it's just, the very intensive chemo and obviously feeling really unwell.
Yeah. And that's the hard thing, right? This is kind of where you spoke about how it was after he passed, that, grief in itself is just a black hole that we fall into. And it's different depending on who's passed. But when you've lost somebody that you're married to, your husband or wife. But I also know from experiences of my friends, people that have been looking after somebody for a long time, it's kind of a double whammy on when the grieving process comes, because you haven't been living your life like it's not like when somebody passes suddenly, or something suddenly happens. Your whole life has changed for that whole time. Like you say, you're looking after them, you're putting work on hold, socials, everything just changes. And so when they finally pass, everything that you've been doing changes with that. And that really does extend and compound that black hole that you fall into, which would have been so much more challenging for you and you said you had really good friends, but you didn't have your family there because they're in South Africa, aren't they?
Yeah. And I mean, it's like you say, it's purpose, isn't it?
Yes.
Your whole purpose is focused on that one person.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden you're like, what do I do now? Because it is almost, like having a child, really, because you're sort of managing the person, looking after them, and then suddenly it's gone. Yeah. And it takes a while to readjust and realize what you're doing. The sort of irony of it, which is slightly odd, is that my father passed away from cancer, and he was just 42. So my mom went through the same thing. Obviously, she had kids, so they're slightly different, but she was the same, that she is originally English and living in South Africa. And then my dad passed away and her family weren't there either. So she was sort of on her own. And it's very strange how we're kind of following almost a similar life path.
Yes. Wow. And she would have been on the phone to you. Obviously, you guys would have been in touch a lot, which would have been great, because she would have actually understood what you were going through. Because I think that's really crucial in grief. I've been through many bouts of it myself, and I've actually talked to quite a few people about it on the show as well, because it's such a normal part of life yet nobody talks about it. You know, when you're going through it, people know that you've lost somebody, but then people don't want to talk about it with you. They're afraid they're going to upset you. And so it's kind of this, like you say, everything was on mute, and you kind of feel a bit separated from everyone, because my dad summed it up really beautifully after my brother passed. He said, it's weird. Nothing changes in your life. Everything is exactly the same, but it's like a hand has come in and just changed all the dials, you know, because everything's the same, but nothing's the same.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It's a very strange thing to do, and just get used to it and then just know how it works. And, you know, initially my mom did say, oh, look, I'll come over. And I just said to her, look, I think it's going to be fine, because I just thought in my head, I almost felt like then I'd have to then manage somebody else, because obviously she's not, I mean, she's from here, but she doesn't live here now.
Yes.
And it was fine just having her on the phone. And I just said, look, just give me some time. And then what I did was just go back home for a few months, which also helped. And I think that was nicer, because that's almost like an escape, just to have some breathing space, and you don't have any reminders or anything. So that's kind of nice in a way.
Yes.
But I think it's it just takes some time to get used to it. And you just suddenly your life has changed again. Yes. And then suddenly you're on a new path. And, you know, that's the way it goes. It's like your life just keeps reinventing itself.
Yes, it does. And I love that you said that exercise is what got you through. And I think that is because when we're exercise, we're in the moment, where there's no self-chatter, all of that goes away, and you are present with yourself, because you're pushing through with your body, you're running, you're breathing, you're outside, you're checking out the scenery, and it's such a grounding moment, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just it's a way of, I think, process. I mean, there's some parts of it there's a kind of, if I call it sort of a mixed thing. So you've got the positive element where you're able to, you know, just release thoughts. But I think there was some element of it that I think sometimes you almost use it to run away from things. Yes. Because I found it quite hard to be still at that time, because I think being still is then, you know, there's too much thought. So you just keep going.
Yes, get very busy in the grieving times.
Yeah, so it has the ups and downs. So it's sort of some of the things that work and then some that don't. But it's definitely was the thing that helped me get through it, for absolutely sure.
And it takes so long. Like, grief is such a strange beast. You know, it's, like I said, it's different every time, and it can take years. Really, it's, you know, I mean, my dad passed 5 years ago, and I can still, like, even today, I don't know, weird things you think about when you're vacuuming, doing the floors, and thinking, I reckon the whole grieving thing has really been going for the whole time. And I don't know how many times I've thought, I think I'm coming out of it now. But, you know, and then I go, I said that 6 months ago or 12 months ago.
You know what it is? It's waves.
Yes.
And I think it definitely, I don't think grief all comes at one moment.
No.
It has different sort of, you know, just imagine the waves coming in and out, and then it draws out and you think, oh, fine. And then, oh no, here comes another wave. And it comes at unexpected moments. Yeah. I had this horrendous day at work, and it wasn't a horrendous day. Everything's fine. And this is, I don't know, it must have been about 6-8 months after he'd passed. And, you know, I was at work fine, and I had a lovely boss, and we were in a performance review, and she just asked me, she said, so how are you doing? Oh my goodness, that was it.
Jack in the box.
I was just mortified, and I don't know where it came from, because I thought I was feeling fine, but it was because she asked me such a direct question. Yes. It just completely set me off. I think, you know, I've been talking around stuff, but when she asked me directly, I was like, then she just sent me home. I was so embarrassed. She just said, oh my God, are you all right? I said, I couldn't get myself back together. But, you know, just it's unexpected times.
Yeah. And you're right, because nobody talks to you. That's what I mean. You know, people don't want to bring it up in case you cry, and then they don't know what to do and stuff. And we just get used to going along and getting on with life. But then, like you said, somebody asked you a direct question.
Oh,
How are you? Well, since you ask.
horrendous.
I know, but it does come in waves. Grief is I think one of those hardest things that you have to get on with life. And because it comes in all shapes and forms for all kinds of reasons, and it's never the same twice, just never the same twice. So exercise is good.
Yes.
And were you into your marriage? Like you did your 4 seasons in Chamonix, which was prior to meeting your husband. I'm guessing that was in your earlier years. Were you doing marathons and things back then?
No, not at all. I mean, you honestly, Katie, you would not recognize me if you'd met me when I was in South Africa. I was completely different. I was a right Miss Glamour puss, and I always used to go shopping, and I had cupboards full of clothes and shoes, and everything matched. And then I went backpacking, and then my whole life changed. Because you know what it's like. Everything you have is in your bag, and you suddenly just go, I don't really need stuff, because the more things you have, the more you have to carry. And I just suddenly, it's almost like you offloaded it, and then your objectives changed. And then because I was traveling, I met a lot of people. But once I got to Chamonix, that really changed, because all the other stuff I was doing was more, working, backpacking, sightseeing. And then getting to Chamonix, I met a lot of people who were very much outdoors, extremists, adventure racers. And it just kind of influenced me. And I just suddenly thought, oh, this is all great. It was just really exciting.
Yeah.
And, I just got into it and did the snowboarding, but then a lot of people mountain biked, so learned a bit of that. And I think the running thing came a bit later. I think that because I started doing a little bit of running through work, but then all of the bigger stuff actually happened after my husband passed. And I think it was more of a focus for me. So it was like a goal and something I was working towards. Yeah. And I think that's where the difference came in, of doing those bigger challenges rather than just a fun race.
Yes, because you needed to reinvent your purposes, and you love sport anyway, so it just was a match made in heaven, really.
Yep.
Something for you. So I really do. I think I want to ask you, I could do 10 podcasts with you, I reckon, because I want to ask you my standard questions, because that often uncovers so many things. But I have so many questions about doing the triathlons and the one across the Sahara, because I've read so much. I've read other people's stories. And so, and they talk about what they go through, and it's like, I want to talk to a real person who's done it, because I reckon, I want that real story. But I'm going to go back to my standard questions and ask you, we all take risks in life. So what's the biggest risk you've ever actually taken, and why did you take it?
I think probably it could be a mix. There's probably two stories I think could be. One was when I was in Egypt traveling, but that was a while ago, and I called a very dodgy taxi, but that's just part of traveling. I'm sure you've had a lot of those stories. And then probably the other is my starting my business. And it kind of evolved from, and I think a lot of people do this, you get the opportunity. I been working for BP for a long time, and they changed the teams around, and there was some redundancies came on. And I thought, do you know what? I think this is the time that I need to make a move, because I'd been thinking about doing something else, and I'd been with them for quite a while. And I started off doing consultancy, but I got a lot of my work through recruitment agencies. So the way you used to be able to get consultancy work was through that and job sites, which was great. And after I started that, I started then doing a lot more studying. And by the way, I was a rubbish student at school, absolutely rubbish. I just scraped through by the skin of my teeth, passed, and literally passed. I never went to uni because I didn't really I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I started working straight away. So I've done everything in reverse. So now then I started studying it like in my 40s. So it was like much later that I started doing that. And because I then went into consultancy, I felt like there was some holes that was missing. So I started doing some studying of that. And then after a few years, I then decided to do the MBA, which I have to tell you was the hardest thing to do. Actually, it was almost harder as doing a desert race, because my brain wasn't engaged in that way. And I think, people who've been to uni, you've done a little bit of, studying, and you understand the process of studying and how you write a dissertation and all that. None of that. And, I thought, oh, well, I first started off thinking I'd quite like a degree. And then I thought, oh, well, I may as well just do a master's. Never mind a 5K run. Let's just do a marathon. Let's just go for it. I thought,
why work your way up? Let's just get in.
Just dive in. It's fine. And yeah, there was a lot of trying to come for air. But the reason I did all that is because, definitely with consultancy, the point is that somebody's paying for your expertise and your knowledge. And so you have to keep that present. Anyway, during the MBA, I think that was when I also realized I needed to diversify the business and start to change the way I actually get work, because I was relying a lot on recruitment agencies and sites, and it was all very much reactive. So, whatever came to me, and I kind of didn't have any control of the type of work I was doing. And also, when I worked and how I worked. And at the time I did that was more for, my sustainable work and all of that in the future. And it was just unbelievably ironic timing, because they've done a big switch in the tax laws here in the UK. So everyone who was a consultant before doing this, the way I used to get, has to go into an umbrella company now. It's all very complicated.
Oh, right.
It was just pure timing that I just happened to make that decision before all of that change started happening. So luckily, I've managed to sort of skirt out of it and just go, I'm not going to, because otherwise you're stuck in this umbrella company, even more bound, and I wanted to have
freedom,
to do freedom. And the thing that was really interesting in, you do an MBA, a lot of people are very, from corporate backgrounds, they're very focused on their careers. And we get asked, if they go around the room and say, do an intro, why are you here? And, people's like, oh, I want to have a senior, exec position. I'd like to be a CTO or blah, 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 and everything. And they got to me and said, why are you here? And I said, oh, I'm here because I want freedom. And I think everybody was, what? And I don't think anybody understood. And I said, well, look, I want to have the knowledge and the freedom to be able to choose how I work and who I work with. And by, increasing that knowledge, then I give myself more freedom to choose. And, I always think of, there was this fantastic interview with Anthony Hopkins years ago, and somebody asked him, what is his favorite word? And he said, no. And he said, the thing is with no, he said, if you have the power to say no, it's unbelievable. And I'm like, it's so true, isn't it? Because sometimes you don't really have the chance to say no. You have to say yes to things because you're financially strapped, or because of this, you have to say yes. And if you can have the power to say no and choose, it's really, really a powerful thing. And that really made a difference. And, to be able to do that. And, I wouldn't say that I'm quite in that 100% position. I'm getting there. And it's developing that business and understanding how to do it. And wow, how many hats do you have to have on? And that's why I have the extended team. Honestly, sometimes I think I'm losing my mind. Like, what am I talking about today? Because there's accountancy, finance, then business development. Oh, there's a project here. And I'm like, what? There's so much going on in your brain. You're trying to manage all. It's like spinning plates. And that's the best thing I do. So I have like a number of people who are sort of almost semi-permanent people that manage operation stuff. So I'm like, everything else, the finance and the accounting and my process and operations, somebody does all of this automation for me and gets all my systems ready. I've got somebody else who runs, some part of my CRM, and that really made a difference, because I had this ridiculous idea I was going to do it. I mean, what the hell I thought I was going to do, I don't know. So that was the biggest risk, and it's still, it's not easy. I think it takes a while to develop, and I was explaining to somebody else the other day, and it's particularly when you develop in your own business, it's almost like the old-fashioned water pump. You just got to pump, and you have to keep doing it, and slowly it's coming up the line, and you could see it moving, but just really slowly, and you have to just keep pumping, because if you stop pumping, it'll just drop back. And it'll eventually, it comes, but and you have to be consistent and just keep doing it, and it'll eventually come. But it's knowing that that's coming, I think, and you've got to have the focus and the faith that that's going to come.
Yes, that's such a beautiful analogy, because that's how it is. I can relate, obviously, and I'm thinking, and there I am at the end going, I'm so thirsty, please, come on.
I mean, if it was a tap, it would be lovely with pressure and everything. Yeah. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Which no, it doesn't work that way. Kind of positions that you're going, it's going to be when you work for yourself, right? If you ever believe any of the marketing out there, and then you get in there, and if you're like me, who has, naught business experience prior, and we'd still say naught business experience right now, because I'm only one person, so you can't really call that, like a conglomerate or anything. But yes, that perfect. I'm going to remember that, pumping the water, because if you do stop, it does go back down into the well.
It does. You got to keep it on, because there's no pressure behind it. You're the pressure. You got to keep doing it.
That is gorgeous. Thank you so much for that. And thanks for sharing your biggest risk that you've taken, because it is a bloody risk, and anything in work is a risk, changing careers, starting working for a new company, any of that, all of it is a risk. But working for yourself, where, like you say, you've got 50 million spinning plates and you're responsible for keeping them all up. And there's, at least in a career when you're working for someone else, you've still got all of that, but there's money coming in. They're still paying you at the end of the week. We have to keep those plates spinning and that water pumping. It's really, it's a real pat your head and rub your tummy kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think you have to, I definitely think that, same with focus and belief. I think you once you pick a strategy or an approach, you really have to commit to it.
Yeah.
And that I find, and it's both financially and sort of your resource time and everything else. You just go, right, that's it, I'm gonna keep going with this, and I know it's gonna flip back, but you have to commit everything to it and get that system moving, and it will eventually come around. But it's just having the patience and knowing that it's the long game.
Yeah, it's the perseverance. I was reading something the other day, or listening to something, and he was talking about my latest favorite book, which I've listened to a bazillion times before, but re-listening to it lately. The obstacle is the way. The difference between perseverance and persistence, so you're being persistent in continuing with something and keeping at something until you get the result. But perseverance is, like you say, that's over the long haul. That's through the ups and downs, through the, maintaining your belief, maintaining your faith, not looking at what's happening that tells you that you're being a dick and please give it up. It's just going, I will not give in. And all about perseverance with all your, I am coming back to that run across the desert. I'm so keen to get back to that. In fact, I think we need to talk about that. Can you tell me how 6 days, wasn't it?
6 days across the Sahara, yeah.
Wow.
Really tough.
How long ago was that?
Oh man, when was that? I think that was it 2018? I feel like I want to say it's 2018. So what's that, 4 years ago?
Wow, not that long ago. Yeah.
Well, it feels like ages ago now.
Well, there's been a lot going on, hasn't there?
I know, when I look at the pictures, it's a really weird thing. I look at them like, oh, that was me. You think, oh yeah, I did that. It's really strange. I feel like I'm looking at somebody else.
Looking through the tunnel of time. But tell me, self-supported, what does that mean? Does that mean that you have to have people who are following you or setting up, stations where you're turning up and and getting recovery and all of that, as opposed to some of the other, like when you do a triathlon and Ironman, they have stations set up for you. Is that what
So what they do it slightly different because it's in the Sahara. So it's like, and it is literally in the middle of nowhere. So we arrived at this really tiny airport, which I've completely forgotten the name of, in Morocco. And they put you on a bus and they drive you for 6 hours into the desert. And there's nothing. I mean, there is road, and then they put up a base camp, and the self-supporting bit comes in that you have to have your own sleeping gear, and your own food and your own cooking equipment or whatever you're going to use to feed yourself, but they will provide the water. So obviously you can't expect it to carry all the water. So they supply water and they have medical support, and they have, the base camp is kind of very Bedouin approach that, you call it a tent, but it's sort of just this canvas awning with some like tree stumps that hold it up. And then there's a Bedouin sort of rug on the floor with all of the lovely stones that are all underneath it that you have to, I mean, when you say desert, it's such a varied thing. So it's not all this lovely soft sand. So it's like a lot of hard packed sort of riverbed things. So you spend each evening trying to pick out the stones from underneath the rug to try and find it that you can go, oh, look, here's the soft bit. So you kind of have to carry all of that. So it's carrying your food and your sleeping gear and anything else you need for warmth or so on. But that was quite hard. So it's really like quite anal that you have to work out exactly what you need to eat, through the day. And they have a minimum, I think it was a minimum of 2,000 calories a day, if I remember. And you have to prove that. So they will actually, they don't check everybody's bags, but they do spot checks to make sure that you have enough calories, because obviously you get some people who think, oh, I'll just run with less. And of course, it's just not enough.
And then there's trouble.
Yeah, so you have to make sure that you've got all of the, so everything is like packed in different days, and you've got your bags written up, so it's all in there. The great thing is, though, as you get towards the end, your pack gets lighter.
Yeah.
The contents. So there is a benefit there. But
so
spend a lot of time.
The pack every day with your sleeping bag, your food, everything. You're running with everything.
Because the base camp moves every day.
Yeah.
So they kind of have, you're running across the desert, so the base camp will kind of move over here, and you'll kind of run a piece here, and then there's a new base camp, but you stay in the same. So they have all these tent numbers, and you all stay in the same tent, but you have to take everything with you. So you pretty much unpack. So it's like a kit explosion in the morning. Find everything, put it all back in your bag, and then off you go, and then
and run with the pack. I hate carrying a pack anyway, so running with the pack would just do my head in.
And I think it didn't help that, you're running with a pack, and it's, most days it was about 40 to 50 degrees Celsius. So it's just, I can't even explain that kind of heat. And there's no shade or anything. It's just
nothing.
It's hot. Thank goodness it's not humid. I think that's probably the one thing that is the difference. It's dry heat.
Yeah,
but it's just savage. Really, really hot. So by the end of, sort of the afternoons just is really, really hot.
And how far do you run a day? Do you remember?
On average, it's about a marathon a day.
So like 42 kilometers or something a day.
Yeah, it's on average is about that, and some of it can be quite lumpy. So there's quite big mountains and hills that you're climbing over. So they'll take you up a couloir, and you have to climb up over the mountains. So it's a really interesting terrain. So it's all very volcanic. There's a lot of black rock there, and so quite a lot of big mountains, and the terrain changes all the time. So you've got, people just think of these massive big sand dunes, and I think maybe we saw one or two big sand dunes that I did, but the rest are, dried riverbeds. And then you've got sort of the worst were these things, I think they call them ergs. And an erg is basically a sea of smaller dunes. So they're only sort of maybe about knee height, but they're really loose. Oh, man, that is hard, because you just going up, and as you slide, you're just sliding. So, it's almost like you're trying to swim across it, and your feet just keep sliding. So you have to try and get across, and they're going across those. I think the sandy bits are the worst because they actually attract heat. So it's almost like an oven, because you hear people cooking stuff on the beach, which I'm sure you guys have probably done, but the sand traps loads of the heat. So you've got the heat from the sun and the heat coming up.
Yeah.
And you just you just feel like you're sort of some roast pig or something that you're waiting, just cooking
in the fan forced oven there.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you've got to take, a lot of people take glue for their trainers because the trainers just fall apart because they melt in the heat. So everything does get quite hot. So it's it's taking care of your feet. I think that's probably the biggest thing when you're doing that race, is really making sure your feet are all right.
I read a book I read recently, and he did a lot of like extraordinary things, ultras, but he's also like a Navy SEAL and done some really extraordinary things. But when he moved from being a Navy SEAL to doing ultras and marathons and Ironmans and things, and he talked about where some of the people cut out the side of their shoes, so they don't get the bunion thing and the rubbing and all sorts of things, which he said he didn't know about, of course, at first. And it's like the horrible pain, toenails lifting off and all sorts of things. So
you get a lot of that. I mean, I think the thing I went for in the end is they always advise that you've got to have a shoe size at least 1 or 2 size bigger.
Yes.
Because your feet swell.
Yes.
On top of that is they've got a fantastic med team, and they basically sort your feet out. But if you've got blisters, they'll sort them out, but then they have to bandage them. So you need that space again in your shoes.
Yes.
You also wear 2 pairs of socks, and that definitely, I think, is the magic in there. So I wore, like, those toe socks where they're kind of in between your toes. The toe socks first, so that you don't have the rub between your toes. Yes. And then you've got a normal sock over the top, and that makes a difference. But it's not conducive for your skin and your feet, because you've got that, and then you have the shoe, and because you're running in sand, you have this gaiter that you put over your shoe to stop the sand from coming in. Yep. So it's effectively like putting your feet in a plastic bag.
Yeah, just like intensify your heat.
So the heat in your feet is unbelievable. You have 2 pairs of socks, plastic bag over the top, and it's like 50 degrees. So it's inevitable that you will get blisters, and it's just a matter of time, really.
And not much time, I imagine, really, in the end. It's not like it's the last day.
No, that's the thing. You've got 6 days of it. So you have to just keep, taping up your feet, running through it. And it's weird because in the morning you feel like, oh man, my feet are so sore. It's never mind the energy, it's the pains that your feet might be in, and you sort of go, and it's weird, you feel it for the first 5 miles, then you just almost like you become numb to it, and you're like, okay, let's just keep going now. I've
heard that you do you just adjust to the heat, to the pain, like your brain just goes, okay, that's what we're doing today. Fine, let's keep going. And tell me, when you were doing the running, because I think people think of it as you're running in a pack, but you're not, are you? You, over that length of time and distance, do you end up spending a lot of that 6 days just running your own race because no one's around you?
It's a mix. So it just depends. It depends on the day, because everybody has their ups and downs. And, some people be running faster, some slower. And so, some days I'll be on my own, and I can see a few people in the front or behind me, and then some people are together, but you're not really, there's so much open expanse. And because the way to survive it is walking and running, you have to learn. I think a lot of people make an error of just thinking they're going to run it and do it in a set amount of time. You actually have to learn to be on your feet for longer. Yes. And that actually is harder, just keeping going for a longer period of time than just running it in 4 hours. You can't do that. You have to think about, because and it's the heat as well. The harder you push yourself in that kind of heat, it's really not healthy, because your heart rate comes up, And so you have to be quite mindful that your pace has to slow down in the heat. And drinking, really important. Drinking, so important.
And do you have to carry with you for the whole race, like for the whole day, enough water for the day?
No, so they will have checkpoints, and I think did they have 2 or 3 checkpoints? I think it was 2 or 3, depends on the day. And you just go and get new water. But what you do is I actually personally felt like it was quite hard for the guys, because they allocate you with a set amount of water per person, regardless of male or female.
Oh, right.
So, and actually the guys, because they are bigger, they need more water.
Yes.
So I found that I actually didn't use all my water. So what we do is, you very much, you feel like you're in a unit.
Yes.
In our little tent family, we'd be swapping stuff. So like, oh, I need one of the burners for my, my cooker. Yes. Somebody needs a plaster. I've got some water. And we're all like, does anybody have any of this? And it was never a
camaraderie, isn't it?
Yeah, it was never a case of like, oh, this is all mine. Everybody was always trying to help each other out. And even in the event, which is why I like adventure races and that more so than I'm not into any kind of road race marathon stuff, because people are very happy to help you. Everybody always asks, are you okay? Because if you stop, they make sure you're fine. And that was a thing. And I can't remember how much we got per day. What was the amount of sugar? I'm not really sure, because they give you water in the morning so that you could cook your breakfast, could drink, and then you have obviously during the race, and then when you come in, you get allocated another lot of water. But because they give you so much during the race, I'd have 2 big bottles that were sort of within my pack, sitting in my in the straps. But I had like a front pack here, and I could actually slide a bottle in the top. But you had to, one of the things I learned afterwards is actually the best thing you can do is actually pour water in your head, because you just got to keep cooling yourself down. Because I was thinking, I don't need all this water, but actually pouring it on your head. And I had this, because you run with one of those, the desert right, you've got a baseball cap with a flap on the back to cover your neck. Oh, that was lovely. You pour water down it, and then it was like somebody had a little cold flannel just touching the back of my neck. Oh, it's heaven. And it would just be flapping against the back of my neck. Oh, it's so nice. It was cold.
Thank God for the dampness.
Yeah, it was just heaven. I did spend a lot of time fantasizing about a cold Diet Coke. And you get condensation down the side of the glass when it's icy. I'm like, oh, imagine that.
I've read stories of, because I like all the survival stories, people lost at sea and, lost in the bush and whatever. And I was reading one of a guy, he'd been adrift for, can't remember, 90 days or something. It was an extraordinary amount of time that he kept himself alive. And he talked about his food fantasies. He said, it's sort of at first you go, no, don't think about the food. And then it was like, yeah, that's as good as it's going to get. So think about the food. Really elaborate on the food fantasies.
Oh, man, ice, so nice. Just like, oh, ice, just heaven. I did really feel sorry for the people in the hotel, because when you finish, after the 6 days, they drive you back, and then you stay in this like 5-star hotel, which is honestly is like Oasis. When you've been in the desert, and you're like, wow. And we come in, and when you do this race, there's no showers, there's no nothing.
Oh, so you don't shower for the 6 days?
No, there's no showers, there's nothing. And so you just literally in the same clothes. It's really quite disgusting. But you come in, and we were like these sort of hideous sand people, we're like sand coming off us. And they were like, check in. And then all of this beautiful hotel, it's all luxurious. They must have gone, oh my God, who are these people? We're like a group of refugees coming in.
Yeah, I was just going to say that shower must have been the best shower of your life.
Heaven. It's so nice.
A proper bed, sleeping on, and didn't have to move all the rocks.
Yeah, it was all the sand that was at the bottom of the bath, I remember.
Tell me though,
Oh,
how is it that you push through? So this is the thing. How do you push your mind through the inevitable pain barriers? Because I've been reading about this, right? I have no concept myself of how it would be in those pain barriers, but reading the books and people's stories of just how, like, it, I think people think when someone does ultras and marathons of any kind, any of that stuff, that they don't feel the pain, right? There's something magical about you and that you don't actually, there's no pain, but there is pain and you have to push yourself through those barriers. And in the case of a 6-day race across the Sahara, you've got to keep getting yourself up in the morning, sore feet, into those shoes, get running. And like you say, the first while it hurts. So what thinking capacity can you pass on about how to get through the pain? Because we all go through different pains, not like that, but it is our mind that allows us to move beyond it.
I would say, I think the thing is you've got to be able to do something that's right for you. And I think that probably is the best thing I'd say is, yes, there are things that people can teach you that they did, but it means you've got to adapt it for what's right for you. And it's something that I always am aware of. I know what my capabilities are. And by the way, I'm in no way fast. I'm always towards the back of the pack, never at the fast thing. And, your measure of success is also different. Some people are like, want to do a speed race. And, because also, Katie, I'm getting so old now. My measure of success these days is, number one, make it to the start line without being injured. Number two, don't get disqualified. And number three, finish. It's like those three things. If I can do those things, awesome. And, it's making sure I get there. And I think knowing the distance of preparation, I find is important. So I do a lot of research, understanding what am I in for. And I think that really helps me because I did a lot of watching things on YouTube. A load of people had videoed during the race what they were doing, and just certain things that I picked up on whilst people were doing the race that I thought, actually, I'll prepare that and watch out for this. And I remember them talking about, because what they do is you've got 6 days, and on the fourth day you do an ultra marathon. So you run through the night. So you're doing a double marathon, and you run basically all day, all night, but you can sleep. So they give you quite a generous portion of time to finish. And there are different checkpoints where you can it's the same thing, it's a little awning, whatever, and you've got everything with you. So you can pretty much sleep anyway. So you can have little cat naps. And I remember somebody saying how hard that was, that, and also during the days that you can see where the checkpoint is, and that is pretty horrible because normal vents, there's trees and buildings and you can't see, but if you can just see for miles, all you can see is this like shimmering light of a windscreen from one of the cars at the checkpoint. And like, how far is that? Oh man. And you can just look at it for hours, knowing that it's still there and you still seem so far away. And I think that was quite good preparation, knowing that was what I was going to experience. So you sort of, mentally prepare yourself. And I find that definitely for me is even more so important than the physical preparation. Is mentally preparing that, when I do cycle stuff, whatever, I like to know I've done the distance. So, my partner always teases me because he doesn't do anywhere near the training. He only does cycling, but I like to do it because then in my head, tick, I've done it. I know I can do it, and I feel prepared. And no matter what happens, I know in my head I've done it, and I can do that distance. And I think that's probably the key thing is being aware of, what sort of speed you need to do. So I'm measured, and I'm, take it easy. I don't want to burn out. I don't want to dehydrate. I want to be able to finish. So those are my things to do. So take it steady. I'll, walk a bit, run a bit. And, there were days where I was like having I had a terrible day. One day I think was suffering some heat exhaustion. And, when you heat exhaustion, you're throwing up or you get a runny tummy. And that is just unpleasant in a desert environment. And you're trying to run across the desert. Oh,
No shower, no toilets.
oh, it's just really awful. And, it was quite common that everybody has that. And I had to really concentrate with that. And I got to my checkpoint and, instead of just going, I'm going to rush on, I'm like, right, took my shoes off, took my pack off, and they have like an awning. I just lay down, drank some water, and I probably was there for about half an hour.
Yeah.
But, I knew that I needed to just cool down and just have a rest.
Yes.
And drinking the water and taking my time, and it made a huge difference. And then got back up on it, and actually I felt fine again. So I think you have to know when to pause and not to keep pushing through, but know your body and just know that you need to get to the end.
Yeah. And I think it's good advice for life, right? Know your body, know what you need to do, when to take your rest, and how to look after yourself, because there's still distance to go.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people I can see were burning out because
Yes.
they were just pushing too hard, and that's the risk. And you think, and it's a lot of money to get there, and it's a lot of planning. It's a year and a half of training, and you think, if you go there and just do something stupid, it's like a reset button. You have to start all over again. It'll be another 3 years before you get to it. And I'm like, no. This is it. I'm only doing it once. This is a one-shot thing. I'm doing it once, and that's it.
Awesome. And I do really want to see the photos of that at some point, if you don't mind sharing them privately with me somewhere along the way. I do want to see them. And especially if there's one of you at the end, before and after.
Oh yeah. I hobbled across the end. Oh.
So of all the things that you've done, because you do a lot of things, you do a lot of variety in sports, what is your favorite?
I do like the adventure stuff, and I like cycling. It's a real mix, and that's probably why I do all of the different things, because I like a mixture of different sport. And I always like triathlon because of you doing different disciplines. So I like cycling, I like running, I like swimming, and I like doing all of those. Although I think the start of a triathlon is pretty horrendous. It's like being in some kind of underwater bar brawl. It's just awful.
Because you all dive in.
Oh, everybody's like swimming on top, and you just get smacked in the head and kicked in the face, and it's awful. So that probably, you need to keep your cool for the first 5 minutes of that. But other than that, the swimming part is nice. But I'd probably say, the adventure races are nice, and cycling, because I do a lot of cycling tours, and that I quite like, because it's more of a challenge, but not necessarily a race. And I think one of the things I always do is I'm a very let's call it social or relaxed sports person. I don't sort of take myself too seriously. That if I'm doing a run the next day, I'll try and relax and do that, but I'll have a beer and do whatever the day before. I'm not going to be like, I must have only these things to eat, and I do that, and I don't take it. For me, it's about having a great time and the journey as well. I think that's the most important thing, is enjoy the journey. I'm not like just trying to get to an end. I want to have a great experience, and meeting people who are good. And I find people are doing sort of ultras and adventure races have a different mindset, that they are more relaxed. They're not on this whole, I have to be at the front and take myself too seriously.
I so want to come and watch you one day, or just support you.
You'd be underwhelmed. I have to tell you, you'd be underwhelmed. I'm really slow, but where's she go? She's still not in yet.
I think I'll pop down the pub and wait for her to come past.
Honestly,
just send me a text when you're in the area, Lauren.
Exactly. That's exactly how it'd work.
I more really would want to be, like the little person who sits on your shoulder and listens to your thoughts and hears how you move yourself through those pain barriers and the challenges of it all, because that's where it's at, right?
Yeah, I think my partner would say that probably is a really scary place to be. But I did an ultra race last week, and I did have to have a lot of words with myself, because I was just struggling on the last bit, and I was like, oh man, do I have to do this? And what I was just doing is finding checkpoints. So I'd be like, right, see that tree over there? Right, we're going to get to that tree. And then, okay, now we're just going to have a little rest. okay, now the next thing we're going to do is that. So I just finding little milestones, keep going to the next thing. And then I was like, okay, I've done another mile. That's all right.
Yes, you got to break it down. Isn't that the same for most things in life?
All
You've got to
increments,
break
yeah.
it down into the tiniest thing that you can do and achieve. And then your brain
Yeah.
goes, oh, that's a win. Cool.
Yeah. I think
What else?
if you think of the whole thing, and I do that definitely, actually, I forgot to say that is one of the things I definitely do during an ultra or a longer distance race is I spend ages doing fractions. I'd read up against about Paula. I don't know if you Paula Radcliffe is a marathon runner, very famous marathoner. She's done loads of Olympic medals and so on. She's retired now, but I read up and she'd said what she does when she's in pain is she counts to 100. And I
Yes.
found that just didn't work for me. It wasn't enough to think about. So I'd get to like 10 and then go, oh, my foot's sore again. And I think, so I'd spend time, actually, I do fractions. So, I go, okay, ultra is 50. And then I try and go, half of that is 25. Half of this is 12. And then 6. And then when I get to a point, I'm like, oh, look, I've done 2/5. I actually honestly do everything in fractions. So I always in my head talk about what I've done, not what I have to do.
Yes.
So I always focus on the done bits and then go, I've done 2, 6, but like really tiny fractions because each time I'm getting a milestone.
Yes.
So that I can not have to think about what's still to come.
Yeah, because that's when the brain gives in, right? Oh, it's too far. I'm never going to make that. Oh my God. And it gives up before you've got such the great strategy where you're thinking about what you've done, which is great. Look how far you've come, which is boosting. And the fact that you do that, sorry.
I was going to say, and my brain is spending all the time trying to do the fractions because I'm rubbish at maths, by the way. Yes. So that keeps my brain busy.
And that's a survival strategy. So I like to study the difference of, survival behavior and survival personality. And one of the things that comes out for people who are survivors is they often use math as a way of overcoming their mind. It's something in the numbers where they do counting, like your other friend, or you do fractions, but they do use math in some way, shape, or form to move them through. Even, I don't know if you've ever heard of the story of Joe Simpson. He was a mountaineer and, fell through a crevasse and broke his leg, and, his mate had to leave him for dead because they were up in the mountain and stuff.
What's it called? Oh, I know what you mean. It's
Touching
incredible.
The Void.
Yes. Oh, yeah. What a story.
Yes, and he used counting and patterns and hopping and stuff. And so that is just a natural thing that our people who have the survivor personality, they go to, because it helps to keep the brain busy while you're managing, while your body's got to go through the rest of what it's going to go through.
Yeah, so true.
Well, thank you for sharing all of that. I will have you on the show again at some point, because I really like digging around in that stuff, because that's, it's just so you purposely put yourself through those hardships and obstacles for joy and fun, right? You're doing it for pleasure. And yet it's by doing those things that really builds your survival behavior and personality for when all the other shit in life comes, because life's full of stuff like that, as you know. And so I just really do like talking about that. And on the back of that, I also like talking about what people do for fun. And I think your fun and all of that is one and the same, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I have to say my poor partner is long suffering, because he likes to cycle, but just as and when. And I think his point is, he always says, can't we just go on a holiday where we just do nothing and lie by a pool? I'm like, oh, no, it's too boring. And he's always like, but can't we just try it once? And I said, no, we're going to do stuff, because he knows that whenever there's a holiday, we've got to climb a mountain, we've got to run something, we've got to cycle. He's like, why do we have to always do things? I just want to lie somewhere.
Well, maybe you need to do the combination one where you cycle to the resort, a different resort every day, and then maybe spend one day there in lounging around the pool, and then the next day or whatever, cycle to the next resort.
Well, we came up with a compromise, actually. We went to Tuscany about 2-3 years ago with a whole group of friends. We hired a villa, there's a pool, everything, and I had a bike. It was brilliant. It was really mountainous. So I'd get up every day at 5:30 and go do like 3 hours of riding. And when I got back, everybody was just waking up. So they would all have breakfast and everything. And it was great because my partner always actually assists. It's like having a dog. You've just got to make sure you walk it. So it's like, just let her exercise because she'll be painful if she doesn't do anything.
You're climbing the walls.
Yeah, just let her go. And so that was a good compromise. But yeah, I think that, and then the doing for fun, I mean, I always love films and good TV series. I think, really sort of gritty crime drama sort of stuff. Yeah. And I do love movies, and I love gardening as well. I do love my garden. That is my fun.
Oh, nice. What's your favorite plant to grow?
Well, kind of like shrubs, really. Shrubs are my thing. I like a mix of stuff. I do have a sort of thing for hydrangeas. I love that. And I love climbing roses. So it's sort of more cottagey garden. So we're in the process of fixing up our garden because it was just like a blank canvas. So I've been slowly planting, it's about price and time. So I'm slowly putting beds in, which is so much fun. So I'm like, just dug out of bed and now I've got to plant it, which is fun. And I love the fact you can just watch them grow and you're like, oh, I did that.
Yes. I think I told you I used to be a horticulturist, and I was rubbish. That thing that you do all day isn't the thing you want to do at home, as it turns out. So I never had a very good garden at home, but I had some beautiful gardens. I won gardening competitions a couple of times. And
oh, wow.
It's so nice. You're right. What though, from gardening, whenever I will one day have my own garden again, it will all be things that you can smell.
Yes, nice.
Things that you can eat, and there will be nothing with thorns.
Oh, yeah.
Except maybe the rose, right? I do like the rose.
Yeah, I've got the rose, and I said pyracanthus. I do like pyracanthus, but they need to be in a place that you're not having to cross over because they are quite vicious.
Yes.
I think so. But I'm gonna, now that I know that, I had forgotten that. Next time, because sometimes I'll spot and I'm like, what is this? Some random things growing in my garden, and I'll often message my mum and my aunt. I think you might be on my next list. I went, Katie, what is this? I found it in my garden. I don't know what it is.
Definitely ask me, and if I don't know, I'll show my mum. She's been a mad gardener I think that's where I got it from. Mum's been a gardener all her life. So by all means, send it over.
Lovely. You're on my reference list now.
I think there's an app where you can take a photo of plant and it'll tell you what.
I have seen one. Yeah, I think I can't remember if there was one that had a charge to it or something, and I was like, oh, don't I? Because my neighbour's
you don't have to pay for it.
Yeah, she's quite a sort of expert on garden plants, and so between my aunt and my mum, I thought, I'm sure I can get this free. And, I've got Katie as well now.
Yes. Happy to help. So what do you do for relaxation?
Yeah. I think
it's obviously not laying by the pool.
No, movies. I think movies definitely. And then, get friends over and, we have a braai, of course, which of course people don't understand that word, as well as known as a barbecue.
Yes.
But we do get people over now that it's summer here, which is lovely. So I do like that, getting people over, having a braai and just chilling out. Kind of entertaining people, seeing friends, bit of movie watching. That's it. But I find it, I don't really have much time to do other things really, because in between that, when I'm doing training for stuff, I find, I kind of don't really put too much else in. Otherwise, it just gets a bit too chaotic.
Yeah. Are you training for something now at the moment? What's your next event?
I've got a couple of trail races I'm doing this year. So I'm just trying to build up my distance at the moment.
Yep.
So I'm slowly but surely getting up the distance. So I've got stuff coming up in the autumn, which will be nice because you don't want to be running in the sun. I think that's always my thing. I'm like, even though I've done a desert race, and really the sun compared to what I've done is nothing, but it's just getting used to it again. So a couple of trail races. I think because I just kept it local because it's just after COVID. I thought I don't want to get involved in anything that's complicated, that I've got to drive somewhere and
Yeah.
stay in a hotel, just something simple.
Yep.
So I'm keeping it quite low key this year. And then I'd like to do some bigger stuff in a few years' time. So a couple of things I'm keeping my eye on in the Himalayas, and then one in Iceland, which I think will be fun. Because and actually that's the other thing I like to do is combine it with travel and, you know, go to nice places. I don't want to just go somewhere that's really uninteresting. I quite like that combination to see something new.
Yes. And you'll love Iceland. I've been there. It's gorgeous. I'd love to go. I only went for like a 4-day weekend to run my one and only half marathon for my 51st birthday. But
Wow.
it's such a diverse country. There's so many different landscapes there and interesting things. And, you know, I was only there for 4 days, but so I didn't get to see anything, but you've got the glaciers, you've got the volcanic fields, you've got the big waterfalls. It's just the geysers, the steam coming out of the mountains. It's amazing. Like, really would want to go back there for a good while and have a good look around.
I've been desperate to go for ages, and then I saw this event and I thought, well, there you go. I can do that at the same time. I can go and do this, see, because while you're running, you're taking everything in. And I thought that's perfect. And then I could do a little bit of sightseeing on the end of that. So happy days. I think that could be the next plan.
Nice fun station. Amazing chatting with you, Lauren. It's been like, honestly, we've gone so over time and I've loved every minute of it, and I could keep talking to you for hours more. So I can't get to ask you the last of my questions, which is a little bit more about your business. But if people would like to connect with you, find out more about your business and how you can help them, where can they find you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm down, if you just search for Lauren Cooper Marketeer, that's how you'll find me. And otherwise you can email me at clients@adaptwithlauren.com.
Thank you so much. And we'll put your details up at the end as well anyway. So it really saddens me to say goodbye today because I've had such a great conversation. And thanks again for coming on the show, Lauren. You're just such a delight. And thank you to everybody who's watched this today. It's always so hard to say goodbye. So please make sure that you subscribe to the channel, leave us a comment, give us a like, and please leave a comment if there's something that we've talked about today that you found interesting, or if you've got any questions, you want to know more about ultras or anything at all for Lauren, we would love to answer your questions. So thanks for watching, and we will see you on the next show. And in the meantime, here's to your health and happiness so you can love what you create. Bye for now.